Hello, everybody. How are you? Wishing you a very, very happy Wednesday. Say hello. Let me know how your day's gone so far. Let me know how you are. Say hi. Good to see so many of you online already. How is everybody today? Where are you calling in from? How you doing? Let me know. Let's just adjust that a little bit. Hi, where are you all based today? How is everybody? Hello, hello, hello. Hi, Lucy. Hello, Eve. Hi. Hi, everyone. Good to see you all. Fantastic to be here with all of you. How's everyone's day been so far? Out of 10, for example. Really good to be here with you all. How about a 6? Okay. Let's see if we can improve that a little. Okay, a strong 8. Nice. Hi, Fiona. Good to see everyone. We're just going to give everyone a minute or so, just whilst the people are still joining, before we get into today's session. And I'm really looking forward to sharing one of my favorite subject matters with everybody, and hopefully giving you some new insights and new learnings I'm hopeful for. Good to see everybody. We've got nearly 120 people online already, which is amazing. Fantastic. We've still got more joining, so we're just going to give everybody a chance just to join. As you join, please say hello. Let me know how you are. Let me know how your day is going out of 10. Midway through the week. Hi, Sophie. Nice to see you. How is everybody? So let me know how you all are. An 8 today. Very good. Hi, Jilly. Hi, Danielle. Hello, Claire. Hi, Natalie. Lovely to be here with you. Oh, Kelly, no, not COVID. That is no fun. Hi, Chloe. Hi, Anne. Good to see you. Christmas jumper. I mean, who doesn't love a Christmas jumper? Okay. Well, listen, I am delighted to welcome so many of you here today. It's fantastic to... Oh, hi, Hetal. How are you doing? Nice to see you. Lots of familiar names that I know, some that I don't. Lots of our clients are online today, and lots of new connections as well. So I'm thrilled to be here with all of you. I'm going to keep today as engaging as I possibly can. And you are so welcome to ask questions as we go through today's presentation. You can put them in the private Q&A box or in the public chat. Pippa online is going to keep an eye out for those, and will let me know questions that are coming up. But I love interactive workshops. I think over COVID, we all got rather webinared out. And so do feel free to ask questions, to let me know if you've got something on your mind, or if it's bringing up something for you. Just share and let us know. And yes, the recording will be sent out to everybody as well. And if you want any further information on anything, you can drop me an email, Jessica, on anything that feels important. So let's get started. I think now is the time to get started. I'll keep an eye on time. I'll try and be timely. Who am I? Who haven't I worked with before on this call? I know that lots and lots and lots of you we recruit for, or we support with hiring or training. But I know some of you I haven't worked with in the past, having looked at the guest list for today. So hello, I am the founder of C&C Search and of C&C Academy. C&C Search is I think we've won 17 awards so far for our search and recruitment work, both in the PAEA business support space, as well as HR and client services and investor relations. Those are our 3 specialist areas. I've been fortunate enough to use my platform to build an incredible learning and development academy. And as a part of that, I get to speak all over the world I am an absolute geek. So I love learning. So I have lots and lots and lots of coaching qualifications, and all of which hopefully will help me to share information in a way that's going to land with you today. I'm annoyingly optimistic as an individual, and I have this absolute sense that we all have unlimited potential. Yours, mine, ours, and that's something I try and instill in my team, in all the candidates that we work with, and through the training and development. Now, we've been rather lucky to have incredible client partners, and these are just some of the client partners that we've either hired for or trained for. We are an all-female team of 26, based in the heart of London. And today I'm going to share with you some top line information and tools and tactics to help take your interviewing from wherever you are right up to an 8 or 9 in terms of level. And I've been studying interviewing and neuroscience and the psychology behind interviewing now for many, many years. And I continue to grow and develop in terms of theory behind interviewing all the time. So let's start. Let's have a look at what I'm going to share with you today. So over the next sort of 50 minutes or so, we're going to talk about my passion for behavioral interviewing and what it can do for you and your organization. And I think that what I hear from clients that work with us for hiring and recruitment is they tell me all the time how strong the matches are that we're able to provide in terms of the dynamic of our candidates, the values, the behaviors, and the longevity in terms of when we do make that placement. And I know the secret, and I'm going to share it with you today, what you need, how you need to show up, and then some really practical ways that you can go back to your organization and put it into practice. I want to ask a question. How many of you, just put a yes or a no, are interviewing but have never received any formal interview training? Just let me know in the chat, yes or a no. Has anybody? Yeah, okay. So mainly it's a no. We got some yeses. Trained too much, says Joanna. Okay, well, I hope today's not going to be overkill for you. Okay, so we've got, in the vast majority, we've got no's, we've got some yeses. Okay. Do you feel, second question for you, do you feel that you are delivering the sort of interview that you know you are capable of if you had that much training? Do you feel comfortable and confident in the trainings that you're delivering, in the interviews you're delivering, sorry? Ish, no. Yeah, okay, so a real mix here, a real mix. Daniel, don't worry at all. Okay, so the majority not feeling 100% confident. So I hope I can help with some of that today. So basically, from our understanding, only 8% of interviewers have received any training, which seems crazy, doesn't it, when our people are the most important things to our organization. Without our people, we have nothing. We have no foundation for delivery, and we've also, in terms of statistics, if you're a statistic type of person, we know that it can cost a business on average about 132,000 a poor hire, starting from about 45,000 up to over 200,000. The impact is huge. Massive lost productivity, increased staff turnover. And we also know that about 50% of the clients that we work with feel that actually with training and development, their hiring, onboarding, retention, culture could all be better. And maybe some of this resonates with you. Maybe some of this resonates with you, because in my experience of talking to clients, what tends to happen, especially as we start interviewing and go on to interview lots and lots over our careers, is people tend to tell me that they hire on gut instinct. They just simply know what works for them and what doesn't. I don't know whether that's something that resonates with you, but we hear it all the time. And I'm going to share with you today why hiring with your gut is maybe not such a great idea, and see if I can convince you of that. Is that something that resonates with you? Hire with your gut, hire an instinct? Is that something that, that you know, perhaps in the past that you've relied on? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, we're going to talk a bit about that. I used to too, by the way. I used to too. So what we do know for sure is that candidates talk about your interviewing. They may share that on social media, but they certainly share that with peers. And it has a huge impact on whether or not you're able to secure the talent that you are looking for. The bottom line is that you are in that moment an ambassador, a representative of your company's ethics, integrity, values, and a poor interview can impact that brand storytelling hugely in one direction or the other. And the candidate experience, whether or not you're going to hire that person, should be consistent and consistently really positive, no matter what. And sometimes, I mean, I had a situation yesterday where a client was really surprised that a candidate hadn't wanted to accept the offer, but unfortunately, the interview experience that they'd had wasn't as positive as it could have been. And so they went with a client for whom they'd had an amazing process in terms of the interviews that they'd had and things like that. So I want you to be able to secure the talent that you are looking for, because no matter what the economic climate we're about to sort of experience over the next year or so, what we do know for sure is that unemployment's the lowest it's ever been. That's not set to change anytime particularly soon. And that to secure the talent you need, we are going to have to be on our A game for quite some time. And why wouldn't you want that? Because that's called creating competitive advantage. So these are the questions that so many people ask, and so many people ask and don't realize they shouldn't be asking, ideally. And ultimately, all I'm sharing with you today is advice. You can take what you want from today's session and put it into practice. But the reason why some of these questions aren't great. So let me share with you. So how many of you asked the question, tell me about yourself? Just pop a yes in the chat box if that's one of yours. So it's one of lots of people's tell me about yourself. Now there's a bit of a challenge with this question. Basically, it allows this person to ingratiate themselves to you, and it also sparks all of our bias. So the way our brain works and the way our ego works is that if, for example, Alicia, I asked you tell me about yourself. And when you told me about yourself, you were smiling and you were confident and you mentioned a few things that really resonated with me. And then what I spend the rest of the interview doing, my brain does, is seeking out confirmation that I'm right. So our brains then, because we are processing so much information all the time, our brains are brilliant at creating shortcuts. So what they do is they then filter out all of the other information, and our brains focus on proving to ourselves that our initial first reaction was the right one. And that's why sometimes when somebody says to me, well, they started in the job but they just haven't performed, and I can't believe it, they were great on interview. And then we go back and unpick what the interview looked like. And it can become really clear really quickly that actually it was more of a chat. It was really friendly, that they'd come across so brilliantly at the beginning, that the rest of it was just kind of almost like an informality. And that they pretty much already got their seat at the second stage or even in the company. So we want to avoid the questions because our brain is hardwired to mess up the interview process, because we all have bias, and our brains are designed to seek out what feels safe, and that's often people that we think are like us. We all know that organizations that are diverse perform better. We know that all the research tells us that, and we want to avoid groupthink in our businesses. We know that a lot of the criticism around the last big recession and what happened, when Lehman Brothers and went bust, is that one of the big criticisms by lots of the analysis of that situation was there was a lot of herd mentality and a lot of groupthink on board. So the same people with the same backgrounds, with the same experiences, making the same decisions. And we don't want that in our organizations. It's not going to, you want to be representative of society. You want to be able to appeal to your investors or your client base. And you also want creativity, longevity, all those good things in your organization. And you want diversity of thought in order to make the best possible decisions. So we want to get rid of those questions. And we want to start to look at, well, how do we move from that unstructured interview where ultimately our Kate, I'll come back to you on that one. So basically we need to move from unstructured to structured. So what we're looking for is past behavior being the best predictor of future behavior. So we all know, if any of you have been in a relationship where you can't figure out why things keep happening the same way time and time again, ultimately past behavior is the best predictor of future behavior. And I could have saved myself my first marriage if only I had learned that a long time ago. So let's have a look at what it really is. So for you, what would this look like within your organizations? Well, it would mean we'd move away from having a chat or following the same old pattern of unstructured behavioral interviews. And we would get into a structure where we have specific job-related questions and real-world examples of behaviors that the candidate has demonstrated in previous experience. So research shows, and research is varied here, it's between twice and 9 times more effective than unstructured interviews. It supports diversity, inclusion, and belongingness. It creates consistency. It keeps things relevant, so you don't get that shock when the person comes on board and can't perform or can't work at the pace or isn't operating in the same value system. It's also legally defensible. And we all know that in the advent of GDPR, if I'm in an interview with you and you're taking notes about me, those notes belong to me and I'm able to request them at any stage. And we saw that with Tesco when Tesco had that recent court case where somebody saw notes on themselves and then requested to receive all of their notes, and it resulted in a court case. So we want you to protect yourselves whilst also doing the right thing. So what about if we can go then, as McKinsey say, from a 30% to a 90% success rate? What would that mean to you and your organizations? Because unstructured interviews do lead a lot to bad hiring, an unfair hiring process, poor candidate experience. And we don't want that. We don't want that because ultimately, outside of the value of a chemistry check, it's not a lot better. We really want you to have the opportunity to have the confidence in your hiring process that you can move to that 90%. And I wonder for you what that would mean for you and your confidence in terms of how you interview. So let's look at the foundations. So firstly, is to have a job description that's up to date. The amount of times that there's no pre-work in a hiring process, and this is where you set your foundation for success. So get together with the people involved in the process first. Find out who's going to be involved in this hiring process and what's the focus of those individuals going to be. Review the job description. Is it fit for purpose? Who are we measuring this against? What behaviors do we want to make sure that we are assessing? What skills? Is that job description going to empower the interviewers to know what they're supposed to be measuring against? So that's what we want first of all. So we need to have a role analysis with the people involved in the hiring process and make sure that job description is up to date, relevant. Yes, so many individuals don't have the job descriptions that they need to have. And it's making sure then that we prepare the questions that we're going to ask and that each candidate goes through that process is asked the same questions. We want to make sure that the candidate doesn't spark all your bias. So all of their questions should come at the end. So that piece is around, that we know that statistically 86% of undergraduates lie in interviews. And that's obviously because, it's a challenge coming out of education and not having maybe the experience that they need. But we also know that there is very certain sorts of profiles of personalities that can be quite toxic or can be very toxic in work environments, Machiavellianism, narcissism, also that generally do very well in interviews if they're unstructured. And we're looking for star responses from our candidates. We're going to get into this in a little bit, but that is looking for your candidates that you're interviewing to come up with situation, task, action, and result, which will allow you to measure their capability. So before we get into this, these are what we're needing as part of your process. These are the foundational tools. So you've had your huddle, you've got together, you've decided who's going to be involved in the interview process. You've picked out some of the key interview questions that each candidate will be asked. And those would ideally be a mixture of behavioral interviews as well as task-related questions. And then you're going to use a measuring tool. Now, data, we know, is going to be one of the most important aspects of hiring in the future, so that you've got traceability. So you can start to see from the very get-go, from the interview that happens, is this person, or are we as an organization looking for people that score a certain level at our interview as our benchmark, because we've now tracked everybody that's joined us and the score they received at interview. And we have a really super simple rating scale that I'm going to be able to show you later that will allow you to analyze the candidates that you have that are interviewing with you and track that data, which is so powerful. So the other thing is that what we need to do is create a situation, a space where candidates have a fair opportunity to be assessed. Now, what happens if you come out of an interview, for example, let's say, I don't know, Jilly, you come out of an interview and you turn to Ian and you say to Ian, oh no, not for me. Or you come out of the interview and say, oh, fantastic, perfect for us. What happens then is Ian respects you. So Ian then goes in looking for evidence that you're right, that this person is the right person for the job, or conversely, the same thing. And we don't want that. We want to have an environment where we are supporting D&I and B. We want to have an environment where we're supporting the candidates to be able to perform at their best. And so these are the foundational tools of doing that. Now, when I'm sort of geeking out on this stuff and really exploring, there's a couple of guys, Frank Schmidt and John Hunter, analysed about 90 years worth or 80 years worth of interviewing data. And McKinsey have done a similarly large research project. Now, they had slightly different results at the very top. So McKinsey came out, their research came out that basically a mixture of a work-related sample assessment and a structured interview was going to get you to that 90% success rate. Slightly different for Frank and John, but not far off. So in terms of personality assessments, not particularly effective. Unstructured interviews, as we already know, pretty poor. References, again, who are you going to give as a referee? You're going to give someone that's going to say something great about you. And then looking at astrology and graphology, which, believe you me, I've heard it all in my last 24 years of hiring. And I've probably interviewed about, 25,000 candidates plus over that time. So we're looking for you to be able to bring in a work sample related assessment, ideally, as well as a skillful structured interview. So some of what we know to be true is that the impact goes far greater than purely a candidate experience and getting you to that 90% success rate, that accuracy piece, is that clients and clients certainly that we work with, and some of the hiring leaders in the world, such as Google, they've seen all of these benefits. So Amazon, Google, really people that are able to attract the best of the best out there in the market, including some of the most innovative finance companies that we've worked with, such as Impacts. They've noted all of these byproducts of taking on board the need for a structured interview with set questions and a rating scale. So that's increased productivity, lower turnover, higher morale, builds strong culture, stronger diversity within the team, better service to all stakeholders. And we know that actually those benefits go far beyond that, far beyond that. So what we don't want, and this is one of my, I guess, my hiring inspirations, is the fabulous Laszlo Block. He was the global head of talent acquisition at Google. He is a genius when it comes to hiring, and I've taken a lot of inspiration from his work. But essentially, what we want to avoid is the first 10 seconds creating your interview outcome. We know that so much affects us as interviewers, whether we've just had had a negative email, or perhaps we've got up on the wrong side of bed that morning, or we've just had a row with a partner, or we've perhaps had loads going on that morning, then we've walked straight into an interview. But even science around conversational rhythm, when two people speak in similar patterns, that can influence us. How attractive we deem somebody to be influences us. How smiley and warm that person is immediately influences us. And we then tend to treat people how we first perceive them. Expressiveness, confidence, all of these things have big impact on how we then shape our interview if we're working in that unstructured way. Because it does take skill, it does take real skill to interview effectively and to set the candidate up for success. So active listening is one of the biggest skills in interviewing. And it's not thinking about the email you've got to send after that, or the project you're working on, or perhaps something you've forgotten to pick up for dinner that night. It's actually about listening to hear and understand rather than be understood. And one of the ways that we can help our brains to do that is to reflect back. So when we reflect back to someone, it's simply saying, so can I check I've understood correctly, and then just give them the headlines? Or can I just check in on that? Oh, so that's interesting. What I'm hearing is that. And when we need to reflect back, it turns on our active listening brain, basically, and we pay much greater attention to what's being said. And that helps us to be completely present in the interview. So for me, when I'm conducting an interview, or perhaps when I'm interviewing with with some of our clients, when we work with clients, if they don't feel as confident as they'd like interviewing, then we do that. Sometimes we sit in with our clients. But I try and imagine myself in a bubble, where in that bubble is only me as the facilitator and the individual being interviewed. And I try and block out everything else. And one of the ways that I advise people to do that, and do myself, is before you do an interview, go and have a walk for 2 minutes. If you've got 5 minutes, great. Go and take some breaths, allow your vestibular system to calm down, and get present. Let go of anything else that's gone on before. Make a conscious decision to leave it at the door so that you can deliver the strongest interview you possibly can. Being well prepared, reading a CV, looking at that person's background properly before going in, having the questions ready to go, and understanding your own bias. One of the big deals in transitioning from being a good to great interviewer is knowing what your bias is, and knowing and understanding that as humans, we all have it, right? But when you know what it is, you can be more conscious about working with that bias and understanding where that's come from. And I know that Pippa, if you don't mind, a great tool to utilize is an IAT assessment. It's completely free. Harvard, you can access them on Harvard. And perhaps Pippa, if you can pop that into the chat, that would be awesome. There's loads of different ones that you can try, lots and lots and lots, and they are super useful. So gold standard interviewers do a few things. And I'm just going to ask you, whilst I'm sharing these, what would you like to improve on? Where do you see that opportunity to go from good to great when I'm sharing some of these things? Where do you want your focus to be? So ultimately, what we need to be doing as an interviewer, when the time is right in the interviews, we need to share the company's values. We need to share the big vision for the business. We need to share the team structure, how this role fits in. And we also need to share something really important, which is called the 30%. So what's the 30%? Okay, so this 30% is what so many candidates are basing their decision on when they look at the role that they're coming into. So this looks like impact, learning and development, and connecting to how their role will fit into creating that bigger vision for the company. So their possibility to create impact, the learning and development they will receive, and how their role fits into that bigger vision. So that's super important, that 30% piece. And most clients, or not all, I mean, lots of clients understand what their values are, but aren't necessarily as good as they could be at translating. This is what this means in terms of our day-to-day behavior, how we show up for each other, and what that looks like. So what we need to do here is we need to look at agreement, trust, presence. So these are some things I want you to think about. Oh, Jenny, I've named it the 30%, but it's the third. Apparently, the research is in lots of studies that this is the key decision maker that can create that kind of level of influence in terms of whether someone accepts a role or not. So I call it the 30%. So what we're looking to do is, first of all, create with the candidate agreement, share with them what's going to happen in the interview. And when you do that, you create trust. And through creating trust, you are much more likely to get the best out of the individual in front of you. We want to create a sense of presence. So not looking at emails, really focused on the person you're interviewing, that real active listening. Strong, powerful questions, those strong behavioral questions. I'm going to share a few of them with you in a minute. Communication, so making sure that you're feeding back and sharing the plan for what happens next, so that candidate understands exactly what is happening after they've left that interview process. And I wonder for you, is there anything there that's coming up that you think, yeah, that's something I could do some work on? Whether it's around that 30%, whether it's around the agreement, trust, presence, that active listening piece, whether it's the powerful questioning, communicating. What is it that's coming up for you there that you can see? Yeah, I can see that could be an area of work maybe. So when we look at what we need from our candidates, when we look at that, thanks for sharing it, April. When we look at what we should all be looking for, there are certain aspects that for all of us, we should be seeking out. According to all of the research, these are the 5 foundations for a successful hire. So somebody that's coachable, somebody with emotional intelligence, so the ability to regulate their own emotions and understand and accurately assess others. Accountability, so somebody that takes accountability for their own actions. Somebody that's motivated, and somebody that can resource themselves, someone that has sufficient drive to achieve their own potential and excel in the role. These things that are innate, very difficult to train in any of these areas. And somebody whose attitude and personality is particularly suited to that role or environment. So these are some questions that you can ask yourself right now and just get really super honest with yourself. There's a great hiring expert called Lou Adler that's been around for a long time. She wrote a book, he wrote a book rather, called Hire with Your Head. It's a brilliant book. So if you haven't read Hire with Your Head and you want to do some further research into this area, and you're somebody that loves reading like I do, then have a look at that book, because it's brilliant, and talks a lot about some of the aspects that we're highlighting here. But we want to eliminate that 15-minute quick interview or that quick chat. We want you to hire people not just on gut instinct, but through a rigorous interview process. We want you to really know them. We want you to know what they're likely to behave, or how they're likely to behave in certain situations. And we're going to talk about what sort of questions those look like. So you've had your huddle, you've gone over the job description, you've decided who's involved, and then you pick out your questions, and that's really important. So just before we go into those, which I'm going to share with you now, I want you just to consider your body language. So one of the most powerful tools for active listening, in terms of letting the other person know that they're safe, that they're in a secure place, that the person that's conducting the interview is present, is nodding, using the it's reflecting back, and it's keeping that lovely sort of, like Sweden, that very neutral position. So making sure that you're not leaning too far in, can feel aggressive, can feel a bit threatening. Not leaning too far back, can feel a bit nonchalant, like you don't really care. So that lovely open body language, real presence, and that neutral body position. And I want you to really think about culture add, not culture fit. Culture fit is the beer test. In sort of, it's the test of, would I like to go for a glass of wine with this person, or would I like to go and grab some food with this person? That's not what we're looking for, because then we're going to go right the way back to that herd mentality, which doesn't produce strong, competitive businesses. We want you to think about, what's this person going to bring that we do not have? If you think about culture add, what they're going to bring to the culture. Maybe it's a particular experience, maybe it's a particular viewpoint, maybe just in terms of life experience, etc., that perhaps you don't have, because building businesses should be like building jigsaw puzzles, where no two people are ever exactly the same. So asking yourself that rather than culture fit, because we know that values fit works really well, so that same shared core set of values tends to create this lovely forward motion in businesses. But we also know that culture fit often creates quite toxic work environments when we're focused on that. So think about culture add. So how can you create this really strong story about who you are as an organization, as an employer, as somebody that wants to be seen as an employer of choice, so you can secure that talent that you're really looking for? How do we do that? Well, we want to create a really strong, powerful story around your hiring. And that starts and stops with the candidate experience. And so there are some really simple tools that you can put into place straight away to start creating that. And making sure that if you're working with people like me, that we are doing that for you. If you're doing it directly, that you do that yourself, but making sure that experience is going to be something that candidates really want to talk about and share in the most positive of ways. And I've given you a 5-step process here to making sure that happens. It's so simple, but it will transform how you're viewed. And it also, we know, creates a very strong really strong internal a sense of belongingness and culture, because it demonstrates that you're high integrity, that people matter, that there is a human involved in an interview process that's invested their time and effort and energy. And it's high stakes stuff, isn't it? If you've ever been for an interview and been rejected, or haven't been successful, and perhaps you haven't heard any feedback, or you don't know what's coming, it's really impactful, and actually can have lasting impact, which none of us want. None of us want that. So it's something that we can all do better. You can also look at the different stages of interviews to have a different focus. So you might decide to have an interview that's very task orientated, skills orientated, and measure that independently, and then have another interview that's very much looking around that culture add piece, EQ, or to Kate's point, hiring for potential, which actually behavioral interview questions are brilliant in terms of hiring for potential. Perhaps if you've marked out questions around coachability, resourcefulness, somebody that's really, some great questions around ideation or strategic thinking, whatever's most important in terms of the sorts of potential you want that person to demonstrate, Claire. So we've got to remember that you've got these 3 stages. We need to attract, assess, and then decide. So we want to make sure that you are creating that structure, that you're creating that strong story, that you then look at your screening questions, any assessments, you use your structured interview, and then decide. And this is the bit where we do ask for references, where we run background checks, where we make sure that, you know, that the candidate that it stacks up in every possible way. So we can send you some example interview questions. That's no problem whatsoever. Here are a few. So 3, 4, 5 of these in an interview max is all that's needed. You don't need any more than that. You don't need any more than that. So these are some guides for you. And we've split these out. So to give you a little example, so around culture add, here are some of those questions that you could ask. And we got loads more information on this. If it's something you want, just reach out to us and let us know. Interesting, Gemma. So a lot of the clients that we work with are stripping information out, not asking for more before the interview. But I think there is a place for pre-interview questions, as long as the candidate has been set up for success and understands that these are asked of everybody during your interview process and that they are job related. And I think if they are job or task related, then absolutely. And as long as every single candidate's treated in the same way, I can't see how that would negatively impact the process. Because we've got to remember that extroverts do much better in interviews than introverts. The interview process for an introvert can often be highly stressful, very exhausting. Whereas extroverts that are much more performative in nature often really enjoy the interview process. So it's trying to create a level playing field for everybody. And that's really, really critical. So how do you really check when you're getting those answers to these interview questions that you're asking, and they're sharing, hopefully, they're sharing what the situation was, the task that they undertook, the actions as a result of the task they were taking on, and the results of those actions. How do we really get into the veracity of those answers? Well, we use some probing questions. So these are some of the probing questions that are my favorites. You might choose to use different questions, but here are some for you. So tell me more about that. I'd like to hear more, or what was the outcome, or how did others see it? Give me more detail about what you did. Is this typical for you? So some great probing questions just to allow yourself to really assess, have you got the best answer possible that you need in order to give it a strong rating scale? So we've got the last sort of 15 minutes, and I'm going to try and make sure I leave 5 minutes at the end, so that you can ask me any questions that you've still got. So let me just share with you my last sort of insights with you. So again, we've talked about what you should be sharing, and ideally what you can do to take that to that gold standard. Here is the scoring system that I would like to share with you. Super easy, allows you to assess candidates fairly. And yeah, that's good. That's a really good question, Aisha, sorry. Let me come back to you in just a second. So here's a scoring system, 0 to 4. And when it comes to neurodiverse, for creating a situation where neurodiverse people can also have the same level of opportunity as anybody else during a process. It's around creating safety. So letting people know what to expect, letting people to know letting individuals know who's going to be interviewing them, ensuring that they understand how long that interview will take, what the process is. That will allow everybody, of course, yes, Danielle, Pippa, can we make sure that we share the scoring system? So to make sure that I share with you, I've given you a 6-step process that everybody can follow, super simple. The scoring system will share with you some questions, and anything else that you need, you can send us an email afterwards. Just come back to me, let me know what else you need, what do you need to know, and maybe we can have a quick phone call following today's conversation if that's going to be supportive for you. But this structure never fails to succeed, okay? I promise you that. And it will allow you to create a structure that everybody in your organization can follow, where you are protecting the business and creating this strong candidate experience that you know you need, because it doesn't just stop and start with the interview. It wraps around to D&I, to culture, to retention, to hiring that top tier talent that sometimes can feel inaccessible to businesses at the moment. So all of those great things. There are a ton of questions that should not be asked, and certainly around protected characteristics, and certainly in terms of making sure that you are not asking any questions that could trigger the candidate that you're asking, and certainly in terms that might be illegal, but also some questions can, in the moment they are asked, completely remove the sense of integrity or trust that candidate has in your organization. So we need to be very aware of what's not okay, very aware of why that might not be okay. And we need to make sure that we are creating a fair, consistent situation for each candidate that attends an interview. And that is really critical. That is really critical. So in closing, ask the candidates, how are you experiencing our candidate? Survey candidates that have interviewed with you, or ask someone like me, what are the candidates really saying about us as an organization? What's the feedback from the interviews? What could we do better? How could we enhance our process? Try and ensure that within your organization, there is a level of interview training. So there's a deep understanding of the bigger why we want to do the right thing in terms of shifting from unstructured to more structured, and looking at candidate experience and making sure that we're doing the very best that we can to create the strong, diverse, talented workforces that will take your organization into the future. Looking at that values over culture piece, or the culture add rather than culture fit, is also really critical. So we have a little time for any questions. What's come up for you? Do I think redacting names is useful for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belongingness? Yes, we know that to be true. We know that even in more recent studies, that removing names is, I work with several clients that do that. Oh, I'm really pleased, Natasha, thank you. So yes, redacting names. I know that some of our clients even redact hobbies, because that can also spark bias. So yeah, absolutely, absolutely. What else would be useful for me to answer before we close today? So assessment tools are, so personality and IQ tests, well, all of the research from a combination of McKinsey, Harvard gives it about a 40%. So about a 40% impact. So Claire, I think I touched on hiring for potential, which is to look at the sort of traits you want that person to bring into the business, and to use behavioral interview questions to assess when they may have demonstrated those traits that you're looking to develop in the past. Thank you so much for coming, Jasmine. Thank you. So Regis has just asked around, yes, so coding exercises. So again, Regis, just making sure, and I hope I've pronounced your name correctly, it's making sure that you are looking at, well, you create a situation for each candidate. They know what to expect. They know the environment they're going into, and they understand exactly what that process looks like. So you're setting them up for success. Some organizations now share the interview questions in advance with candidates in order to give everybody that opportunity. And Aisha, so sorry, I thought I touched on your D&I questions. So just to reiterate, the most important aspect in order to be able to create an interview experience for neurodiverse individuals that creates a stronger and more equitable playing field is to share exactly what to expect, when it will happen, how it will happen. And as I just mentioned, for some organizations now, it means sharing the interview questions in advance in order to assist with creating a level playing field. How important is Glassdoor in your opinion? Okay, Glassdoor has an impact, but I don't believe it's the be all and end all. I think that responding to reviews is important because candidates do their research, and making sure that you have responded to any reviews. And of course, people do understand that a disenfranchised employee is much more likely to leave a review than perhaps somebody that's had a wonderful experience. But also encourage your employees to leave, that you've got your great team members to leave a positive review on Glassdoor. Glassdoor's a little bit naughty though, I have to say, that if you know this, but as soon as anybody leaves a review that's currently working for you, what happens then is they start approaching that particular employee with new roles. So yeah, so it's a bit naughty like that. Why should you not ask yourself somewhere where they see themselves in 5 years' time? So there's a very different question you can ask, which is not where they see themselves in 5 years' time, because they are most likely to tell you what you're wanting to hear. A better question would be, can you explain to me how you would have created the impact, or could you specifically share with me what sort of impact you're looking to create in the next 12 months and how you would get there? Because most people don't answer questions like, where will you be in 5 years' time, honestly. They mainly just say exactly what you want to hear. How about sending a preparation pack? Brilliant idea, Jenny. Gold standard stuff, 100%. Thoughts on screening calls? Ah, yes. So this is really hard because I understand that people are time poor. So I think having a work sample assessment is better than a screening call, because then you give every individual personality type the best possible chance to perform well. What would be included in a preparation pack? So your company's values, your company's vision, your company's interview process and what the candidate can expect and what they should prepare for. April is what I would say would be in that preparation pack. Okay, what have I not covered? Anything at all that I haven't asked or answered, sorry. I can't see anything here. Okay, well, if you would like to work with us, then here are all the different ways that you can reach out to us. If you want to ask me a question, then these are all the different ways that you can do that, but you can email me directly or we can have a call. Strengths and weaknesses question is a definite no. What are your strengths is going to spark potential bias. It's also performative in nature. So what that means is people tend to either borrow, as in they're not their own. So the best way to establish what somebody's strengths are is to use behavioural interview questions. Victoria, of course, will send you the recording afterwards. Just share with me, because you know, I always love to know what's been useful. What are your takeaways or a takeaway from today's session? Just let me know. It's always a bit lonely doing a webinar. I always love being in a room with people doing this sort of thing, but it's the best way, obviously, to be able to reach out. So what are you taking away? What's been most useful from today? Even though it's really high line stuff. Thanks, Tim. I'm glad it's been helpful. Good. Excellent. Tailoring the job spec. Yes. Do's and don'ts. Good. Culture fit. Great. That culture ad. Fantastic, Grace. Thank you, Billy. Brilliant. Oh, I'm so pleased. Probing questions. Excellent. Oh, I'm so glad it's been so helpful to lots of you. It's just, that's really, really reassuring. Good. Excellent. Well, I'm here to help. We're here to help at C&C, so let us know how we can do that. And yeah, just reach out. I always love connecting, and we'll share the recording so that you can utilize that and go over the different areas of the interview. All right, okay. So just reach out to us after this. Absolutely. Thanks, Juliana. My pleasure. My absolute pleasure. Thanks, Tracy. And I really hope you have a fantastic rest of the day. I'll look forward to speaking to you all very soon, I hope. So enjoy the rest of your day, and yeah, keep in touch. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for being so interactive as well. I really appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Natasha. Take care. Awesome. Good stuff. All right, guys, I'm going to say goodbye now. So have a fab rest of your day. Take care, everyone.